Welcome everyone and thank you for joining me. My name is Tandin Tlapo and today we are looking at practice and application questions on exchange rates. Right, now let us look at our first practice question that is given to us. The value of a currency fluctuates on a daily basis. Refer to the table and answer the questions that follow. So now this is the context that we are given, or this is the table that we'll be using to answer the questions. So now the first question would be, which currency is the weakest? B, explain what it would mean to a South African traveling overseas. C, how much will you receive if 1,400 is exchanged in British pound? And lastly, exchange rates fluctuates all the time. List 2 reasons why this happens. So now let us work those questions out. Number A, which currency is the weakest? So now, firstly, you look at the given context. So according to this, the weakest currency would be the one that has the lowest value, or it shows a decrease in its value. So now when we look at these currencies, all of them, we can see that we have an Australian dollar with a value of 9.81 rand. So the weakest currency we have there, it's our Australian dollar with a value of 9.81 rand. So that is our weakest currency. Looking at the second question, explain what it would mean to a South African traveling overseas. So traveling to this country with the lowest value or the weakest currency, it would mean that you will have lesser returns when you exchange your South African rand into that currency because it is weaker. You will have less returns, you will have less buying power. If you are working there, you will have less salary. Even groceries and services in that country will be expensive because now they have lost their value in terms of currency. So any relevant answer, you can still put it down. Let's say this one, you will have less returns. Now remember, anything that is relevant to this concept, it is also acceptable. Then, number C. How much will you receive if 1,400 is exchanged to British pound? So now you go to the table, you check the exchange rate compared to South African rand of a British pound. So we are having the 21 rand 7 cents. So we have our conversion factor, 1 British pound compared to South African rand, it's going to be 21 rand 7 cents, and we are converting what? 1,400, placing our units accordingly, rands under rands. So we have 1,400. We are converting from South African rand to a foreign currency. So now we are going to divide. So when we divide from below with our exchange rate. Below is our 1,400. Then we have 1,400 divided by the given exchange rate, which is 21 rand 7 cents. So now this will give you a total amount of, so remember we are converting to British pound. So it will give us, working out with our calculator, we will have 66.45 British pound. So this is what you will be receiving when you are converting 1,400 to British pound. Now, moving along to number D. Exchange rates fluctuate all the time. List 2 reasons why this happened. So now remember, we have mentioned that it could be the instability of the government or of the country. It can be the exchange rate. It can be the inflation whereby goods and services are increasing and decreasing. Any answer that is relevant will be acceptable. So you can say it's due to the inflation or any other reason that you can think of. Right, now number 2, a pair of sneakers is sold online. So now these days we just buy online. The sneakers are £187.65 in New York, and the same pair of sneakers is €185.48 in London. Given the exchange rate below. So we are given the exchange rate as per country, the US dollars compared to South African rand and the euro compared to South African rand. So number A, we are to determine the cost of a pair of sneakers in both countries in rand. And number B, we were to calculate how much I should save if I buy the sneakers from the cheapest store. Now, let us look at number A, working out how much are we going to pay in both countries. Now, firstly, we have the US dollar, so meaning $1 will be equivalent to 14 rand 55. So now this is in New York. So we can just say there, so that we can differentiate between the two. So this one, I'm buying it from New York. So now compared to South African rand, they cost 187.65 in US dollars. So now I'm converting. How much am I going to pay in South African rand? So working that out, we are converting from a foreign currency to South African rand. So we are multiplying. All right, so now let us multiply. So we are having our 187.65 multiply by our exchange rate, which is 14 rand 55. Now, working that out, we are going to have a total amount of 2,730.31 cents. So that will be when I purchase this pair of sneakers in New York. Now, looking at the other country, which is London. So now, in London, I'm given an exchange rate compared to South African rand as €1 will be equivalent to 21 rand 65. So in London, these pair of sneakers, they cost €185.48. So now I am to calculate the amount in South African rands as to how much am I going to pay. So now we are converting from a foreign currency to South African rand. We are also going to do the same procedure as to multiplication. Now, let us multiply 185.48 euros multiplied by our exchange rate, which is 21 rand 65 cents. So now I'm going to have a total amount in South African rand, 4,015 rand 64 cents. So now this is what am I going to pay when I choose to purchase whether in New York or in London. Let's move on to the next question. Calculate how much I should save if I buy the sneakers from the cheapest store. So now if I want to see or check how much am I going to save. Obviously, I must take these two prices and find the difference. And when I find the difference, it's whereby I'll be subtracting these two values. So now the biggest value, I'm going to take the biggest value and subtract the smallest so that I do not get a negative sign, because we are talking of money. So our biggest value was 4,015 rand. 4,015 rand 64 minus, so I'm subtracting the 2,000 from New York, the price that I will pay when I purchase in New York, which was 2,730 and 31 cents. So now finding the difference between these two values, working that out, subtract these two values, and then you would have saved 1,285 and 33 cents. So this is what I would have saved. Okay, learners, let us quickly go to an ad break. We'll be right back.